live and then wait about 5 seconds and then start the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, Angie.
You're live.
All right, so hello everybody. Welcome to the January 20th, 2021 Fish and Game Commission meeting. Happy Inauguration Day as well, as we switch to a new presidency and a new administration. Always interesting times on Inauguration Day to look backwards and forwards. But let's get right rolling into the meeting. Tracy, you want to do our roll call?
Sure. Anna Newman,
Present.
Red Hawk Paulson.
Present.
Did I say that correctly? Your last name?
Yes.
Patty Madigan.
Present.
And then do I just keep going on the list, even though I know that they're not here? Or
Go ahead. Remind us who's on the
Randy
commission.
there?
Randy
What?
sent me an email. He's doing a tour of a mill, leading a tour today, so he'll be missing the meeting, and he asked that we move his agenda item to next week's, or next 2 months meeting.
Okay.
And
And
then
Michael Kira. Right.
also absent, we're struggling with contact information for Michael still. So I'll reach out again. We definitely value Michael's input on the commission over time, and I'm unsure, you're only allowed to miss so many meetings in a row because these are technically special meetings. I'm not sure if they count towards him missing them. And if he still has interest in participating in the commission, I want to make sure that, you know, his willingness to serve is duly noted, if and when we can come back to in-person meetings, when that timing is going to look like. So I'm trying to dance that line there. But we do have open positions available if anyone watching is interested in becoming a commission member. We are seeing applications at the time.
I think that if he was able to call in, you know, that could help bridge the gap because, you know, we have all kinds of Zoom meetings for different occasions. And I think that if participating via phone was possible and then a number was provided, that might help bridge the gap.
Excuse me, this is Angie Lane with the county. And on the agenda, I added the COVID stuff, which includes how you can get onto a list for a phone call and the Zoom information. So they can participate through phone, and the information on how to do that is on our website, and the link is on your agenda.
However,
I saw that. Thank you.
If someone is
Thank
not computer savvy, they're not going to get that information. So we need to do some extra outreach to people who are unable to access it via computer. So that's just an extra step. If one of us can do that, then maybe the next meeting they will be able to participate.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Michael again, and with this new information, how to call into these meetings, because he is a valued member and has been with the commission for quite some time. And then as well, reaching out to our community at large to make sure that they can call in and listen as we move through these new technologically savvy times that we seem to be forced into. Strong-armed. I feel strong-armed. Lack of a better word. But let's kind of move right through past roll call into public expression. Is there anyone who's part of the public who would like to express at this time?
There was one gentleman, but I think he's more of a presenter than wanting to speak. Devin Jones.
That's a woman.
Oh, sorry. Tracy, do you know, is that a presenter?
She's everything, right? she's not, I mean, they're on the agenda for the elk, Angie, and with all of that, but she might have something else that she needed to tell us. I don't know. Did Craig Bell come on? Do you know, Angie?
I need glasses. SFRESZ, and then someone called owner. And then there's a phone number along with a couple other names, 354-4232. I guess I have to, I'm sorry, I'm kind of new to this too. I guess I'd have to let them into the meeting so they can state who they are, so I know when to let them in.
I think we let him in right now, right? As soon as we go live, is that correct?
No, well, that's not how we run the rest of the meetings that I've participated in. The panelists are you commission members, and then the speakers get brought in at the time that they speak. I exit and enter them in the meeting.
I think our protocol has been that when we have face-to-face meetings is that they can sit through the whole meeting. This is considered a public meeting.
No, they're a part of the meeting. They just can't speak whenever they want to. They can't interrupt you while you're talking. I let them in to speak, but they're watching the meeting.
They're listening right now.
They're listening. They're attendees. You guys are panelists.
Thanks,
Brad?
Angie. Okay.
I'm looking at the list of the attendees, and there's 3 of them raising their hand. And so maybe we should ask who they are, and then go that way to have them speak so we know what the process is.
Or if they could
I
rename
see.
themselves with a name, they can hear us. And if they rename themselves, then I know who they are also. So let's see. Allow to talk, this first one. Free.
Yeah, hi, do you guys hear me?
Hi,
Yes.
yes we do.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sean Fries. I'm with Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm the Lands and Wildlife Program Supervisor, and I'm on with a couple of my staff that are also watching and muted. I just want to say hello and introduce myself. I know we're not quite to our presentation yet, but nonetheless, myself, Angela Reese, who was previously Angela Moran, and Carrington Hilson is our elk research biologist, so it should also be attending.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, person labeled owner. Are you there? You're not muted. We should be able to hear. Okay. And the third one, the phone number, ask them to unmute.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Dennis Hogan from 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council.
Did you wish to speak during public comment or later on in
Well,
the presentation?
I'm on the agenda. Let's see. I'm on the agenda. I'm on agenda item 3.
Okay, so I don't think we
Wonderful.
have any public comment, and Tracy, you can take over back.
Thanks, Angie.
Okay, well, thank you guys for kind of bearing through us as we figure out our new public comment section. Once again, strong-armed in technology, we're all gonna try our best and be patient with each other, I hope. But moving straight forward, we do have a quorum. A quorum is 4 or a quorum is 5
3, I believe.
members. 3, all right.
That would be 3 for us, I believe.
Okay.
So we're good.
So minutes from the November 16th, 2020 meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to look those over?
Yes. And I approve them, or they're acceptable. Well done.
Acceptable?
If you need
Very
a
good. Does
second,
anybody want to?
yeah, I'll second.
Perfect.
Mhm.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, so the ayes have it, no nays. That was painless. And straightforward onto our agenda items. Sorry, I just seem to have closed my agenda. Technology's winning today. Can we start straightforward in with our presentation from our ELK folks? There we go. Angela Morgan from CDFW reporting on ELK surveys.
Hi, this is Angela. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, welcome.
Hi. My colleague Carrington Hilson is also presenting with me, so just want to make sure she was unmuted as well for the presentation.
I should now. Can y'all hear me?
You're echoing.
Uh-oh. How about now?
Better.
Better.
Okay, great. And then we also have Sean Fries on the call from our department. He's the Wildlife and Land Supervisor. He introduced himself earlier. And then we also should have another person on the call, Kristen Denreiter, who's the statewide elk and pronghorn coordinator. And so I don't know the format, if there will be time for questions or anything later, but I know they might want to participate in that as well. So we are the 4 people from the Department of Fish and Wildlife that are on the call right now. And then as far as the PowerPoint, I'm not sure, there's no area for me to share my screen. Should I email that to someone, or how would you like that to work?
Yeah, if you want to email it to me, I can share the screen. I believe you have my email from our past emails, or Tracy, your hand was raised. Do you have the ability to grab that quickly?
You guys, I'm so sorry. This is off topic. I just saw that Craig Bell was here and his hand was raised, and I had asked him to bring his issue up in public comment, and I don't think he ever got called on. So and Patrick Higgins' hand was raised too, and I don't think he got called on. I just wanted to say that and they were muted, so then they couldn't say, hey. So, okay, so, and what am I looking for? I'm looking for the,
So why don't, Angela, can you
so I don't know
send
what
me your PowerPoint? And in the meantime of me grabbing that PowerPoint and setting it up, can we hear from Craig? Because we do know that he has a public comment coming through. And then that way we don't have to all awkwardly look at me while I dive into emails.
Yeah, really quick, Anna, I don't think I have your email. I'm looking through my emails here. I don't, I have Angie Lane's email.
I can do it.
Oh, cool.
Would that work?
All right, I just sent you an email.
Okay.
So you can just reply straight into that one.
Okay.
I'm interested in hearing
Do it
from
if you
Pat
like.
Higgins and Craig Bell.
Craig Bell's been let into the room.
All right, Craig, you want to take it away?
Craig, are you there? We can't hear you.
It looks like
It says he's muted. He's muted.
He wasn't.
He's muted. There he is. Okay. Craig?
Craig, could you maybe call in, because we're not able to make contact with you, and we really want to hear what you have to say. Bad connection. Craig,
If you
Craig, we
That's
can't hear
limited.
you at all, so you're gonna have to call in.
You hear that? He's like driving. I think I hear him in the car. Okay, well, we can move on, I guess, to the. for
You
now.
want to listen to Patrick Higgins? I thought one of you said he wanted to
Yeah,
talk.
Patrick
Okay.
Higgins could be, yeah, let into the room.
Patrick Higgins, you're in the room and you need to unmute yourself.
Patrick, unmute, please.
Okay, have you got me now?
Yeah,
I'm on the phone and I'm on Zoom, okay? And
Good.
the webinar format is not what you should be having. You should be having a Zoom format so that persons such as I, who am prepared to give a PowerPoint, are not just in some kind of nether space, but instead full participants. And so I would recommend in the future that you change your protocols, because it's been very frustrating for me being on mute, not seeing my hand up, calling in on the phone, and not being able to present a PowerPoint I spent a couple of hours to appraise you of on item 3. Is there any way that I can be fully admitted? See, Tracy can't have the Fish and Game folks show a PowerPoint because she can't share, because you guys are a webinar. So you're basically broadcasting out, you're not taking in. And so if you want people to fully participate, they have to join in a Zoom call. And then you'd see my beautiful blue shirt and the Eel River behind me. And then I could run a PowerPoint for you. Sorry for my exasperation. And I will now yield the floor and limit myself in my remarks to item 3 without visual aids, I guess. And so thanks for letting me join you. I will try to coach Craig Bell on how to use the phone line, but I was on the phone a minute ago and wasn't being heard, and there was no way for me to get into the conversation. So what is your advice with Mr. Bell? If he calls in on the phone, will he be able to communicate clearly?
Tracy, you're
I
muted.
guarantee that his line is going to be good. If he calls in, we can try.
So,
There's two.
Patrick, to answer your previous question on the Zoom meetings, we are currently working on that with the county to have our own Zoom site. We don't have to have a county administrator. It's taking time to get that taken care of. And with Craig Bell, if he can call in, we'll just try to make it work. We're just doing the best we can in the current circumstances.
I can give you a tiny update on that. The contract for your administrative assistant is being pushed through. I'm waiting on a few documents from her. And so hopefully you guys will have her soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And we do apologize, Patrick. We feel your exasperation on very many levels here. But thank you for bringing it up. We'll definitely make a better effort to make this more streamlined as we move forward and as we kind of learn more about this technology in the future.
If you guys would like to
Angela, I still
Thanks,
haven't
he's
gotten
here.
your PowerPoint. Oh,
could I,
Yeah.
one more. Would you like me just to let everybody into the meeting? It's your commission, not mine.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, please.
yeah, if we could do that,
Do-
that would be amazing.
Hey, Ange, do you see Craig Bell over there? Looks like he's back in the house again.
Yeah, he's listed there. Okay, I think I have unmuted everybody. So if they unmute themselves, they're free to speak in your meeting.
Cool. Thank you, Angie, for stepping through
Thank
this
you,
with
Angie.
us. Angela, I'm still struggling to get your PowerPoint.
I think it's going to take a little bit of time to get to you, Anna. Usually.
It's a big
Yeah,
one.
it just shows on my end that it's sent to you, so you should get it anytime.
So my experience with Zoom is we can share our screen. So if they can bring Zoom, their PowerPoint up on their screen, and you can relinquish and share, unless there's something at the county level that doesn't allow you to do that.
Yeah, Patty, I think that was what the gentleman earlier was discussing. When we're in a webinar format, we're not allowed to share screens.
Okay.
So if we were on a typical Zoom meeting, you'd be able to see us, hear us.
The lady just said she could let us all in.
You're in.
We're talking about the PowerPoints, Patrick.
Okay, yeah, so even though I'm in and you can hear me, you still don't see my image, even though I have a video camera. So there isn't technology to include us at that level in a webinar, right? Or is,
Yeah.
okay,
Which
so,
we're going to work on changing in the future, because we do recognize how much effort you guys put into these PowerPoints. And we want to see them and view them and have our constituents also be able to view them and watch them back and all of that stuff. So it's a eye opener for us as we move forward. And as painful it is for you guys today, I'm hoping that we're learning a lesson.
thank
They
you.
should have just told Angie.
Is
I
Craig
think
Bell,
it's been
is Craig Bell on and can he be recognized?
Craig Bell is in the meeting. I let everybody in.
There's an unmute button at lower left on your screen, Craig, if you're muting yourself.
He's not muted. There'd be a little that now he's
He's
muted.
muted.
He just muted
He
himself.
just,
Okay, well, I've got the CDFW PowerPoint going here. If we do get the opportunity, Craig, we really do want to hear from you. I also want to keep moving us forward on this. So we'll kind of jump right in with Fish and Game. Angela, if you're ready for that. I'm going to take over here and share the correct PowerPoint, which would be not my one on Urchin Baron Restoration, but this lovely one for CDFW. All right, does this work for y'all?
Yeah, is there any way to, I don't need to see the notes on the screen. If there's any way just to show the PowerPoint as the whole screen?
Okay. Close this. Reshare like that.
I think if you go to display settings at the top, that little, yeah, click that.
There we go. Whoa. There we are. This is also a new PowerPoint software for me. All the learning is being done today in front of a live audience. Again, apologies.
Well done. Well done.
Okay, are we ready to start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Angela Reese and I'm the unit biologist. My area covers Humboldt, Del Norte, and Mendocino counties. And as I mentioned earlier, Carrington Hilson will also present a few slides later on in the presentation. And then my supervisor, Sean Fries, he's also on the call. He's the Lands and Wildlife Supervisor. And our statewide elk and pronghorn coordinator is also on the call. Her name is Kristen Denreiter. Okay, next slide. So today I'm going to talk about the Mendocino Elk Management Unit, the population estimates and goals, the 2020 helicopter survey summary, and then Carrington will review the future monitoring efforts. Next slide. So this is a map of the Mendocino Elk Management Unit, also called EMU. And this is a 2016 map of the distribution of elk in the Mendocino EMU. And this is a kind of outdated map. We know that there are observations of elk in other areas besides this, and that there has been elk range expansion over the last few years. So this EMU has both Roosevelt and Thule elk. Elk were extirpated following European arrival. Some contributing factors are market shooting for the fur and hide, meat trades, introduction of exotic plants, introduction of feral and domestic cattle and horses, and also was the onset of the gold rush era. So because of these contributing factors, the historic elk that were in this area were extirpated. And so in 1982, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife introduced 17 Roosevelt elk in the Kings Range National Conservation Area, which is in Humboldt County. And those elk are the Roosevelt elk that disperse south to 10 Mile River north of Fort Bragg and to the east. From 1978 to 1988, 300 Thule elk were released at multiple locations in or near the Mendocino Elk Management Unit. And they were introduced on or near public land. However, a lot of these elk became established on private property because they prefer the grasslands associated with livestock grazing and production. Next slide, please. So the goals in the Mendocino Elk Management Unit are to improve elk habitat conditions and population levels with consideration of current habitat capacity, other land uses, and long-term environmental changes. To establish a positive cooperative relationship with tribes regarding elk management in recognition that the department and tribes share authority to regulate the take of elk as they move across jurisdictional boundaries. To enhance opportunities for the public to use and enjoy elk, and to respond to elk nuisance on private land. Next slide, please. So the population estimate in the 2018 elk management plan is 1,190 Thule elk and 115 Roosevelt elk. And these tables just review the different groups of elk and different counts that were used to determine that estimate. Next slide, please. The population goal in the 2018 elk management plan is 200 to 1,000 elk for Roosevelt elk and 800 to 2,500 Thule elk. Both of these having a minimum ratio of 25 bulls per 100 cows. Next slide, please. So for the helicopter surveys, we did do helicopter surveys March 12th and 13th, 2020. And this is an effort to obtain, more recent population estimates and trends. And we originally had 4 days scheduled for the helicopter surveys, but there was a terrible storm that came in with hail and snow. And so we had to quickly reduce our survey efforts to fit into 2 days.
No.
And you know, the helicopter pilot can only fly a certain amount of hours a day. So we originally had 6 polygons planned, and we had to reduce that down to 5 survey polygons. So we did not survey a polygon we originally wanted to fly by Island Mountain. And then 1 polygon was reduced in size around Potter Valley. Our polygon was originally a little bit bigger, including some more of the forested area around the valley, but we had to reduce that. Next slide.
You're sure you're on mute, right?
I see. Yeah, it's just complaining or something.
So the objectives were to determine distributions of subherds throughout the surveyed portions of the elk management unit, produce a minimum count, and determine the herd composition. Next slide.
Oh shit. Fuck, I just can't out. It's like time to get
So this is a zoomed out map of where we perform the helicopter surveys. They're the red polygons. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Somebody's raising their hand.
And this is a more zoomed in map. So as I mentioned earlier, we did not survey the Island Mountain polygon to the north. And the Potter Valley polygon here is the survey we actually did fly. It was originally just a little bit bigger than that. So we fit in these 5 polygons to the south here within the 2-day period. And how we picked these survey polygons were we chose open, non-forested areas that were known winter and summer ranges for Tule elk. And we focused on areas with high human elk conflict and other areas with increased sightings. We used previous road surveys and other data. And we had personal communication with landowners and local game wardens. Next slide, please.
Newman is showing the slides for her. And then what's funny is
And for survey methods, you can see in this picture here, there are these lines. These are the survey transects that were flown by the helicopter. And the helicopter basically zigzagged, north and south along these transects. And when somebody in the helicopter spotted an elk or a group of elk, the helicopter left the transect to kind of hover closer to the group of elk to collect data. And then once that data was collected, the helicopter would return to where it left on the transect and continue on. And so when elk were seen, the data that was collected was a waypoint, which is the location of the elk activity, if they were bedded down or standing, the total number of elk, the number of identified cows, bulls, spikes, and calves, the percent cover, the habitat type, and the observer that first spotted the elk. Next slide, please. So the results are a total of 536 elk in those 5 polygon survey areas. And the 536 elk were in 16 different groups. So the Potter Valley polygon, a total of 174 elk were counted. There was 37 in the Willits polygon, 63 in Eden Valley, 182 in Laytonville, and 80 in Covelo. And then there were also 4 newborn calves in Potter Valley that were also counted during the survey, which is really early for calves. Next slide, please.
It's on the middle of the screen.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so when you have a full screen, it will move over at least to the right.
Yeah.
If you're in small screen, it's gonna. I'm surprised they weren't complaining that you're covering their picture. Seriously.
Oh my God.
So some of the challenges were, like I said, we mostly did try to survey open areas that you can see with the helicopter, but there were some forested, more highly vegetated parts of the polygons outside of the valleys. And so this is a picture here. You can see there's an elk in the middle, but you know, you can imagine that it might be hard to see elk in this kind of habitat. And so some elk could have been missed while flying transects in these areas. Also obtaining an accurate composition of the population to estimate ratios. And the reason for that is because we did these surveys in March, and by that time, some of the bull elk dropped their antlers, others didn't. So there could have been some bull elk that dropped their antlers that, you know, might have been misclassified as a cow, even though the crew did their best effort to determine if it was a bull with or without antlers. And then also the calves at this point in March, they're almost a year old, so they're really big. So a lot of the calves that were born the year before in 2019, you know, were misclassified, could have been lumped in with the cow category. And so a way to address this in the future is to survey earlier in the year when cows and calves can be more easily distinguished. Next slide, please. And if you'd like to look at our helicopter survey summary, we do have this written up in a report, and it's publicly available on our website. So this top bullet here is where you'll find the report. It's our main elk management webpage, and you just scroll about halfway down and there's a link to the helicopter survey summary. I included the actual link to the survey summary as well, but it's a little more difficult to write down. And then I also just want to do a shout out on our elk management page. We have this link here that says report an elk sighting. And so anybody from the public can report when they see elk. It's a really easy, user-friendly application. And we do look at that data to look at areas that elk are being observed by the public. And that does help us look at range expansion in elk. Next slide.
You take West Road, and then just before the cemetery on the left.
Hi, this is Carrington. So as Angela and Sean mentioned earlier, I'm the elk research biologist for the coast. I originally started in only Del Norte County and have expanded into Humboldt, and most recently down into Mendocino.
Wait there, I see them.
So in regards to Mendocino, what we're really hoping to do for future monitoring and just research efforts in general, we're hoping to continue with the helicopter surveys that Angela just covered. We want to add to that by obtaining better composition counts from road surveys. So these road surveys will extend from the beginning of November all the way through the end of February. So that should give us the opportunity to collect better cow-calf ratios as well as cow-bull ratios or bull-cow ratios. We also are hoping to implement camera surveys. So in locations where we have elk that are in more forested habitat, especially as you move over towards the coast, cameras are a great way to get at estimates of abundance. So in locations where we don't have visibility from the air and we don't have visibility from roadways or we don't have access. So that'll be the next step forward. We're alternating camera surveys between coastal counties and inland counties in Region 1. We also are hoping to initiate collaring efforts. So we've been collaring elk up in Del Norte and Humboldt for, I believe now 4 years. The collars really allow us to identify habitat use and home ranges for these elk groups. It also, having the capacity to mark individuals gives us the ability to identify herds and subherds. We will continue to perform disease surveillance. So that will include disease surveillance of elk that we'll capture, as well as continuing with health monitoring for elk hoof disease or TAD. And finally, we're hoping to respond to elk nuisance on private lands in an effort to help property owners alleviate basically depredation issues. Next slide.
Super simple, her name and her address.
I animated this slide. So here's basically all of our road surveys. So click forward for me. You could probably just click all the way through until the slide is full. We have a total of, let's see, 7 routes. There we go. Okay, so we have routes at Usal, which would basically be our Roosevelt Elk. And then the rest would be Tooley's. We have a route in Covelo, one in Laytonville. That Sherwood route is actually 2 different routes, but they're connected. Then we have the main Willits route, Potter Valley, and Ukiah. Next slide.
I didn't know there were elk in Ukiah.
Yeah, yeah.
And go ahead and click forward for me. There's 4 bullets. So some of the challenges that we face, first is staffing. Angela and I right now are covering a pretty large area. And of course, funding. So our budget is constrained and we're looking at elk in all of Region 1. We also, one of the biggest hurdles that we face are property access. So the majority of our elk along the entire coast are on private property. So having the capacity to have property owners that are on board and willing to help us with this research really goes a long way. And then finally, it's a very large geographic area. And as Angela mentioned earlier, it requires multiple monitoring and survey techniques. So we're looking at utilizing aerial surveys with the helicopters. We're going to be driving around doing road surveys and then hoping to follow up with the cameras.
Clicked in.
Next slide.
I don't think so. Unless it could be that top number.
Well, that's true.
Oh, so they started out all pissy because.
And here's basically just our contact information if anybody has questions or wants to reach out to either Angela or myself directly.
He's not computer savvy, and I was like, well,
Does anybody have any questions?
how he can call in. And then, it's still too technological. We need to have our own Zoom meeting that we can control. Everybody.
I've got a couple questions for you. With your callers, do they have GPS trackers on them?
So yeah, they're GPS collars. So they basically send location information to a satellite and then we can go online and track those individuals. They also have VHF capacity. So when we're on the ground, we can utilize VHF to find the individual.
Very cool. And with your helicopter surveys, are you looking at both species there, Thule or Roosevelt, or can you distinguish between the species from a helicopter?
So currently our survey polygons and are inland, so they're covering the Thule elk. So the majority of our open habitat is where Thule elk are. When you look at the Roosevelt expansion that's coming down along the coast, that's predominantly pretty heavy timbered areas and not really conducive to flights.
Cool.
This
Those
is
are all my
Pat
questions.
Higgins, and I saw a collared elk off of Salmon Creek above Lake Pillsbury. This would have been in March of 2017. So is that part of your surveys, or does the Forest Service also have work that they're conducting on these species?
Where was that again?
That was above Lake Pillsbury. There's a drainage called Salmon Creek. And, kind of between when you get to Lake Pillsbury and then you go to the airport, there's a big herd out there on the grassy plain. And that's where I saw one with a radio collar.
Pat, so
I have
that's
a video of it too.
Yeah, that's out of our Region 2 office. So there's a biologist there, Joshua Bush, and he is collaring the elk in Lake County.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Lake Pillsbury is, yeah.
Well, it is. This doesn't run in the minute at all.
It doesn't
The lake doesn't.
Anyone
go to
else?
Mendocino at all?
Uh-uh.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought it did.
The road to it starts in like Mendocino County
Okay.
and Potter.
All right, well, I'm going to take the screen back here from you guys. Thank you so much, Angela and Carrington and Sean, for all of the work that you do and keep on keeping on. And with that, we're definitely interested in hearing it. Sean, I see your hand raised. Do you want to?
I just wanted to say thanks for having us, and we appreciate it. If anybody has any other questions related to elk or any other wildlife issues, please feel free to reach out to me or any of our staff.
You know, I do a radio show on KMUD in Southern Humboldt, and it is also widely heard in Mendocino. And I'd love to have somebody on to talk about elk. It's called Monday Morning Magazine. So I'll follow up, and it's kind of fun. We script 5 questions, and you get yourself some softballs so you can tell people about your program and see if we can get more people to call in, maybe get a few more people to cooperate around Laytonville there, because I know they're running around in private pastures there. So thanks for the great presentation. And I would love to help you network with more volunteers and maybe win a little more cooperation with landowners. And I'll follow up.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
So this is Devin with Mendocino County Farm Bureau. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. Yeah, it's not cooperating very well on my end. So I'm the 6664 number down there on the bottom. And I just want to thank the department staff for being here today. This is obviously an issue that we've been working on for several years with the management plan, as well as working with Angela and her team in looking at these counts. Just a couple of questions in terms of, so 2020 looks like it was the first year out of a 3-year plan for doing these surveys to kind of come up with a population number. So if after that 3rd year, there are determinations that the population in Mendocino County is within that goal of 800 to 2,500 elk, what is the process for going back and reanalyzing the management plan and looking at, in coordination with that, some of the tag allotments for the share program, the PLM program, general draw, etc.?
Do we have Kristen on the line?
I am here. So hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Denreiter. I'm the statewide elk coordinator based in Sacramento. As far as redoing the management plan, there's no immediate path forward for that. The better path forward is something that perhaps Sean and Carrington can talk a little bit about, which is a stakeholder group that they're developing for the North Coast EMU, which is Humboldt and Del Norte counties. And so that was actually written into the unit plan for the North Coast in the larger statewide elk management plan. And that was because there is a lot of concern over elk numbers, conflict, conservation, all those sorts of issues up there. And so trying to develop a stakeholder group to bring together these different perspectives to find some common ground for elk management that meets the needs of folks who are really worried about what they perceive as dwindling elk populations versus those who are feeling the very real impacts of elk conflict on private property. And so that may be a good path forward. Certainly if we are above the numbers, the objectives in the existing EMU plan, there are options for increasing tag quotas, and that would be through an environmental document. And the surveys and population counts that Angela and Carrington have talked about will be reanalyzed for something like that. And that is a much more straightforward process. But if there are concerns about what the objectives are in the management plan, that I think that stakeholder group model that, again, maybe Sean or Carrington could talk a little bit more about might be the appropriate avenue for that.
Curious just on some background information, and I do apologize for my lack of knowledge on elk in general. But so you released 300 in 2017, and then you grew to around 538. Is that normal elk growth? Like in fisheries, we call it recruitment, and that they've come into the population. Do they usually grow at that rate? Is that poor? Is that really great? Are you hoping within 5, 6, 10 years, they'll have hit a recovery status. If we are indeed trying to recover them. Sorry, that was a mirage of questions.
So I'm hoping Angela maybe or Carrington could take that as far as the numbers. There weren't any released in 2017. I think maybe that was a misunderstanding of the years there. It would have been much longer ago. That any releases like that.
300 elk was what was reported in 2017 from count data. Is that?
I also heard something about 300 being released. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
also-
so that was in like 1980. So I was giving like a
78 to 82.
historical perspective that the elk were they originally were all throughout the elk management unit. They were extirpated upon European arrival, so there were no elk in the management unit. So then in the 1980s, our department reintroduced elk, and that's where the 300 came from. 300 were introduced in various areas on the east side of the elk management unit for Thule elk, and then 17 for Roosevelt up in Humboldt County that moved down. So that's where the 300 came from. And then there are some numbers, some, population estimates from in the elk management plan in 2018, which was that other slide. And then, now we're trying to get more updated information to inform population estimates as of current. And, Carrington talked a little bit about how we plan to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Okay,
we
thank
will
you for
continue to gather
clearing that up.
information to better make those management decisions. And then also, we are short-staffed. We do not have a permanent wildlife biologist in Mendocino County. However, that will be changing. We will be hiring a unit biologist for Mendocino early this year sometime. And I expect that position to work really closely with the Farm Bureau and the Fish and Game Advisory Committee and other stakeholders in the area. So we definitely will be more on the ground and more collaborative with all the groups down there.
This is Patty. I work for the Mendocino County RCD. You're probably coordinating with our staff in the Willets in the bypass mitigation area.
I got chills.
Yeah, that's our habitat conservation planning branch. Yeah, they are working with you
Okay.
guys.
Okay. And then also I wanted to say that my understanding is that 500 some odd is just an estimate based on your air or your helicopter surveys.
Everybody was like, devastated.
There are elk that I know are in Cottoneva Creek, and I'm sure that there's some down on the south coast as well, but I don't know that they're actual herds. There are groups of elk that have been seen by myself. So the best way to convey that information is through the reporting that you showed us on that one slide.
Yes, that would be fantastic if you would be able to share that with your stakeholders to allow them to report those observations to us.
Yeah, we're on the road quite a bit in spite of COVID. Our work continues, so we're happy to do that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
This is Devin again. Maybe one quick question just for Angela. Did your email address change or is it still the same?
Yeah, so my last name did recently change. So I do have a new email address. However, all emails that go to my prior address still come to me. So yeah, I can send that to you. Actually, I think it was on the last slide, but it's Angela.Reese, REHSE @wildlife.ca.
Wildlife.ca.gov.
Yeah.
So Angela, I guess I'll follow up with you. I know trying to coordinate for some additional property owners within some of these areas, I think that's something we can be willing to assist with. And I would be interested in following up to see how the sort of model up in Del Norte County is working with the stakeholder groups. I did have some correspondence early on in the elk planning process with my counterparts in Farm Bureau up in Del Norte County. So I would be interested in kind of seeing how we can start a similar process down here in Mendocino County as well. So I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. I look forward to hearing from you.
CTO, yay.
I'm still waiting here about 4:10. I need to know.
Any other questions for us department folks?
I gotta start next week because I put in. to get my
Nope,
second-
thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. And if you'd ever like us to come back, please let us
I got it
know.
on Friday so that
Thank you.
if I get a reaction. I have no
Yeah, will do.
time.
Thank you guys so much, and thanks for the work that you do. I know it's not easy being understaffed and underfunded and counting out from helicopters, but the helicopters part sounds really fun. I must say. All right, so I think our next topic on the agenda was supposed to be hosted by Randy Van, who's unfortunately not here.
I get it, I'm good.
And that's the Lake Hammerhead project.
So I'd rather get it that way.
So supposing we're just gonna move straight forward onto this one, into the request by 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council for assistance in funding on the 10 Mile Creek Watershed Forest and Grasslands Health Plan. Dennis Hogan and Pat Higgins, I believe that's you guys. I'm more than happy to have you guys send your PowerPoints to me again, and I can host my screen. I know there was a bit of a lag there, or if you want to bull right through it.
Dennis
Angie?
is going to lead off, but I believe I have share screen at the bottom of my options right now, so I think I
I
can.
made you a panelist.
And I also sent it via PDF to the lady from the county, so I think we're set to do that. But would
I
yield
have
to
that.
Dennis.
Thank you.
I have that, but I thought you might want to control it, so I did make you a panelist, and it's up to you, Patrick. Would you
Thank
like me-
you. I'm very, very pleased to be able to run the PowerPoint from my desk here. I was just kind of confirming that, because we had that second option. So, but I would love to yield to Dennis, who is with the 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council, and then I will follow him.
All right, we'll let you guys take it away then. And thank you so much, Angie. You're amazing, doing amazing things for us.
Is Dennis muted from your end, or is he muted at his desk? He's on the phone, so you must be muting him.
Not me. I asked him to unmute. That's the only power I have.
Dennis Hogan. Dennis.
Yeah, now can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go, brother.
Okay, you there? Yeah, no, I've been pressing *6. Okay, so I'm Dennis Hogan, and retired math and music teacher at Laytonville High School, and a landowner here in the valley along Cotto Creek. And so I'll try to make it short and concise. And if Pat, if you want to run the PowerPoint during, feel free. So I'd like to start out by sort of telling you who the 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council is. It started out sort of an ad hoc public meetings of landowners who are concerned about things like, decreasing salmonid population, diminished water flow, and of course, forest fire risk. And the actual council formed officially with a board about 3 years ago. And in the last year, we wrote and got funded for a grassroots Rose Foundation grant, small grant, but currently we're using the funding to create a video, kind of an educational video for landowners who would be interested in the video. Basically is going to follow along a storyline of describing sort of pre-European use and management of the local watershed, describing current problems, and then going through what projects are happening now. And one of the projects was actually given to us by the Eel River Recovery Project, and that's the Forest Health Pilot Project. And that's the one that we're really looking for increased funding. It is funded by the North Coast Resource Partnership to the tune of about $120,000. But it's a pretty large project, and what it is data collection in this watershed. Now, 10 Mile Creek watershed is the only tributary watershed that's an oak woodland, and that would be Quercus, true oaks. And for example, on my property, I have 4 identified species of oak. What's been happening is the oak woodlands are basically overgrown and being invaded by other species, significantly fir, also pine and bay, but apparently the fir, according to the foresters, is pretty invasive. It overstories the oak and also sucks up quite a bit of water. So what the data collection is going to be, basically, and it's ongoing, it's already occurring, is drone surveillance, 3D mapping of the region there, and on-site plots, water flow, water temperature, things like that. And there are 12 sort of demonstration sites around the watershed. Landowners who are various terrains, some grassland, some along the stream, and some oak woodland. And so the idea is that once the data is collected, we'd really like to go in and try to, reduce fire risk, increase water flow, and improve the oak woodland health, including regeneration, which, with the overcrowding, smaller oaks are not, it's not regenerated really. So right now there's a whole group of sort of professionals from Laytonville and Humboldt County who are coming down and doing these measurements. And once it's complete, the idea is to get some large-scale funding to actually do the work on these, starting with these 12 sites, demonstration sites, and generate some jobs also in the county, which is pretty important, especially around here in Laytonville, for sure. Currently, I'm working with NCRS on my woodland, but we realize that you guys don't necessarily have money for funding at this point, but if you do, we'd like to be considered, so that we can complete this process and really move forward. And that's basically what I have for you. Happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Is there a dream dollar amount that you would love to see?
Well, at this point, it's short about 30,000. So we're also, looking at Mendocino Community Foundation. We're sort of looking anywhere we can, really. So yeah, the dream amount is 30,000. 10,000. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what,
This is Pat.
Yeah, it's just nice.
This is Pat. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you, Pat.
Okay, it looked like there was one more question from Red Haw, though, for Dennis.
Yeah, so back to the funding. This is a great project, and I think it's something we would like to look into. At our next meeting, I'm hoping to have some solid questions on where our funding status is, and I could probably answer more of your questions then. So I think this is a good project, and I like what you guys are looking into.
Well, actually, this is a pretty brief synopsis of the project, and I'm sure Patrick could certainly email you, or I could, a copy of the original proposal to NCRP, if you would like.
Yeah, that would be great if you would just email it to our county website. I'll have it forwarded to me from there. That would.
Okay, and sure. And Tracy, if you want to, email me that site or send it to me, and I'll forward.
We will definitely get that to you.
That would be great. And then some other funding sources. If you're looking at thinning and fire protection type stuff, CAL FIRE has quite a few grants that are available to that may assist your project. So you may want to look into that, and you may have already looked into that.
Actually, if I could just scamper through these slides, I think it will help you understand better context.
Perfect.
So can I do that? You're seeing title slide, 10 Mile Creek Forest and Grassland Health Action Plan. Are you seeing that? On your screens?
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Yes.
So we have recently, the Eel River Recovery Project, which is kind of a sister group to 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council, has recently finished a state coastal conservancy project to look at riparian restoration, water conservation, and erosion control. We successfully completed that, and so that's a project where we now have follow-up 319H, riparian restoration, and another Prop 1 from the Coastal Conservancy to do water conservation and erosion control. So we have follow-on projects. But we also noted, while we got out and saw all of these people who participated, that all of them had concerns about forest health. And whereas some things like water conservation and water use can be controversial in terms of organizing, finding that the receptivity of people in Mendocino for fire safe stuff is really, really high. So in meeting with the 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council, it became apparent that they really had this forest health issue as right at the top of the list. And 10 Mile Creek has a fault right down the middle of it, and it has a lot of grasslands because of its geology. And so it's a forest and grasslands in 10 Mile. And so the 10 Mile Creek Basin is a 65 square mile basin. It's equivalent to the upper South Fork of the Eel, but it has better gradient for coho salmon than the upper South Fork, as you can see in this map, which is the National Marine Fisheries Service coho intrinsic potential. It's got huge potential for restoration for salmon and steelhead, including coho. Chinook use 10 Mile Creek heavily, and in years when the flows are good, it has some of the highest concentrations in the Eel River Basin. The coho still return, although their returns are sporadic and they're kind of spotty in distribution, and they really need cool water. So there's a flow constraint for coho and steelhead. Steelhead are all over the place, and in wet years, their juveniles are really thriving wall to wall, but in dry years, it's very challenging, such as the last one. So how can we get more flow back? Oh yes, and then there's the lamprey, a fish that only its mother could love, but really an important species in 10 Mile Creek as well, and for Native Americans. So during the course of our project, we compared flow between Elder Creek, which is old growth USGS water quality benchmark, with Streeter and Big Rock Creeks in 10 Mile, which are altered watersheds that have problems with flow. And so we had Thomas Gast Associates do a comparative statistical study between the two, and the outcome was fascinating. Elder Creek's the control, and I wish I was there right now because Steelhead are leaping the waterfalls. Big Rock is a beautiful creek, but it's altered and goes dry in late season in dry years. Streeter is similar to Big Rock, and they both come off the same ridge as Elder Creek. But this is what their flows look like. So Elder, it's like a water bank. When water hits the ground, it goes into the aquifer and it feeds out slowly through the entire summer. And it's hard to tell the difference between June and September in Elder Creek if you have a movie camera on it. You can see Streeter and Big Rock actually go up and down like a yo-yo, and that is actually the change in vegetation in Streeter Creek as a result of post-World War II logging, and also firs overtopping oak. And so evapotranspiration, trees breathing, is driving Streeter Creek dry. And so this is a more widely recognized phenomena, and it's an unintended consequence of post-World War II logging and also the cessation of Indian burning. And so as we have too many trees, that's also what precipitates catastrophic fire risk. And the study that I would refer you to that verifies the relationship between forest age, size, and sapwood in fir trees versus old growth, and it's stubble field at all from the upper Mattole. So now, really the way to get flow back in Streeter Creek is to thin the forest from below and to remove the firs from the oaks. And so in our quest in 10 Mile to get forest health implemented on a widespread scale, one of the chief benefits that I'm looking for as a fish guy is to get the flow back. And so here's some shot of firs overtopping oaks. Acorn is the part of the food chain. And as firs overtop oaks, that's really bad for the food for the animals. And it's also bad for the water cycle because the firs really use a lot of water and the oaks use hardly any. In a worst case scenario, this is a photo from the North Fork of the Eel River Basin, where oak trees have been overtopped by fir because of cessation of Indian burning. And this was at the heart of the August fire. And so catastrophic fire will ensue if we don't more actively manage. So what we want to do is get all the citizens in 10 Mile Creek oriented to forest health, get them all plans so that they can have forest health implementation, and then get grants on the scale millions of dollars from the CCI, which is Climate Change Initiative, and the Wildlife Conservation Board, Climate Change Initiative, and their Prop 1 can both be used to thin forests. Prop 1 to get flow back, the other to sequester carbon. And really, that's the other thing we're talking about here is that we want to use the eel as a carbon sink. Most of the people that we would have as clients do not have extractive interests at the heart of their agenda and are willing to actually restore forest health and then engage in more stewardship. And this is a meeting of the 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council on Forest Health on January 25th, 2020. I'm sorry that their work has been somewhat slowed by the pandemic, but this is really well received by the community. Forest Health Team. So North Coast Resource Partnership is a jumpstart grant. It allows us to do new types of forest health plans that require less measurement on the ground so we can sequester carbon and improve small landowners can play the game. But also, in order to make cost-effective forest health plans for individual landowners, we need a watershed-wide forest health, grassland health action plan. That's what we're requesting the money for. And this would be for the 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council. It's kind of like an owner's manual. Same forest health team that you see here would be available to the 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council to address all the forest health issues at a watershed scale, to identify every mechanism of funding and the timeline that we could achieve that funding. And the reason the Eel River Recovery Project is really fostering the 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council is because we're going to create too much business. This is going to be a major opportunity for employment. And so, and not in extracting from the landscape, but in restoring it. And it's an exciting time, and I think that 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council can serve a similar role to the Middle Klamath Watershed Council, New Orleans, where they work in partnership with the Caribou Tribe and the Forest Service. They create about 60 contracting jobs a year. So that's the kind of, and that hasn't been happening in Mendocino County, and that's why we got this grant, because we're plugging an organizational vacuum, and then the 10 Mile Creek Watershed Council will represent the capacity for us to hit the ground with those kinds of resources. And people are thrilled. You're looking at Patricia Kovner. She lives in a fire trap. That's Mike Jones from the UC Extension, and he is telling her what she needs. The other foresters there, Heather Morrison, know how to take the forest inventories. And so these forest health plans, the individual ones, will be done by July. Our project is supposed to be done by July. They gave us 120,000 instead of 150,000. So we had to cut something out with 80% funding. We cut out the forest management watershed-wide action plan. And so 20 grand from the Mendocino Community Foundation and their field of interest, and possibly 10,000 from you guys. I know that's on the high side for your ability to give. And of course, right now it's kind of moot because you don't have funds to give. But I hope I didn't talk too fast. Oh yeah, if you like what I just said, go to eelriverrecovery.org, and we just made a movie with Keith Television called The Age of Nature, where Ernie Merrifield, Wailaki elder, Round Valley tribal elder, talks about indigenous use of fire, and then it also has scientists talking about how that makes sense from a modern perspective. So I'm out of breath. I hope that was helpful.
No,
That was great.
That was an excellent presentation there. And I think that's a great project to be part of there. And definitely when we get a better handle on our funding, I think we should revisit this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We want to see projects that support our communities with jobs, like you're saying, and then also support our ecosystems and educate. So we'll definitely recircle back with you guys. Patty, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say that I've talked with both Patrick and with Craig Bell about how, the mission of our commission has been basically to try to provide some resources for things like this. And that, I know the county has a lot on its plate. And so it's just one of the minor hiccups that they've had, but just had, kind of a major impact on our group and our ability to function as a resource locally for these, kind of small projects, if you look at the scale of things. And, talking to Craig, who was the leader of the commission, the director or the president of the commission, for many years, and he said that there were many sources, or there are multiple sources of revenue to fund our grant sources, and it had at one point hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that there are funds that are coming not just from local fines, not just from our local DA, but from the state as well. And so I think we need to it's our responsibility, because left up to the county, it may never fully be unveiled how much money has either come to us and not been, exhibited, or, somehow got lost in the shuffle. But there is probably money somewhere in the county that should have gone and should be coming and filling these voids, these gaps that our commission has. And one thing to not hire a secretary, it's another thing to not disclose funding. So I think we need to push a bit.
So I did talk to Mr.
I'd like
Bell.
to respond to
He
Patty.
said that he's going to send his
We're
comments
going
in
to have one at
writing.
a time talking.
Okay, I'd like to respond to the budget issue that you're talking about, Patty. So I don't believe that there's hidden funding or our funds have been hidden or not disclosed. What the priority, the last time I looked into this, is it is not the county's priority to process the fines that we collect. So money, I have a recent budget update. I put a request in this week. I didn't get a response. There will be one at our next meeting. But I don't think we should even consider that they're hiding funds, because there's no fact, there's nothing to support that. Their priorities have been directed somewhere else.
I'm not saying that I think they're doing anything nefarious. I think
Got it. That's
because
how I
of
interpreted
their
what you said.
workload and because of all the, the cannabis stuff and COVID and fires, that, it's a back burner item. Also, it's my understanding from Craig Bell that there is funding that annually comes from the State Fish and Game Commission and fines that come through the state and not through the local DA that have typically been divvied up amongst the counties. So I'd like to know where that funding, what's happened,
So when I looked into it, I guess it's been about 2 years ago. Things I think have changed from maybe when Craig was involved. So we get everything from our local wardens and the fines and the citations that they issue. I don't know. I can double check to make sure we're legitimate, but I mean, a lot of things could have passed. But I think it is a good idea to look into it. But I don't should presume that there's wrongdoings.
No, I don't. I think it's kind of like guilt by disorganization and lack of capacity. The fact that we didn't get a secretary, now they have some different requirements where they have to be, they have to hold a policy, a liability policy for a part-time job is kind of crazy. But, I know there's a lot of barriers that they've been dealing with. But at the same time, if one of our purposes is to be a resource,
100%.
we haven't been functional like that for a couple of years now. So it's disturbing.
Can I just address you shortly?
So,
Mr. Bell was quite frustrated in not being able to connect, but I did connect with him, and he said he's going to write you a letter to explain, kind of his insight in these matters. But I just want to say that what you guys do with strategic small investments in local communities is really, really important. And you funded us for 2 education grants out in Round Valley. And now as a result of that, we were able to draw a $293,500 Department of Water Resources urban stream restoration grant will be starting out that way. And without the pilot money that you guys helped us to work with the schools to find out about this prospect, we would not have been able to make that bridge for the community. So I really think what you do is really important, and it's really sweet. And I hope you are able to get assets back, because you're in a unique role there. And I want to apologize for the way I came on at the beginning of the meeting. I'm very sorry for, I was a little lit up, and I usually, so I apologize.
Got it.
We forgive you. We understand.
we're working through this, and it's getting better with time.
All of us.
I think this is the most organized we've been in the last year.
You met my needs after I made a fuss.
We have a quorum. That's an accomplishment.
I know.
But thank you for your kind words, Patrick, and we completely understand why you're frustrated. We were all feeling it as well, because we want to hear from you too. It's been frustrating to be disconnected from our constituents on so many levels, and then having to do it through this new platform with such a steep learning curve. Even for the millennial that I am, I'm just struggling my way through this, and it's supposed to be my generation.
Can't you let, I just did a a webinar with Humboldt County Office of Education, and they let me in as a presenter. So there's different tiers. Like right now I'm on with my voice, but I'm not on with my video, even though I got a camera sitting here. I'm thinking maybe within even your current parameters that you would meet the needs of presenters. And then, you know, people are there for the public for observation. That's different. But thank you at any rate for bearing with me and making this work. So I'm at your service. I also would like to talk to you about pike minnow and pike minnow management in the future, but I didn't want to confuse things today. In the Eel River, they're not a native species, and Chinook and coho salmon are trending in the wrong direction. And the policies related to the department and allowing people to come in and help them manage are restrictive. And it's too bad, because we could help them manage pike minnow. And I think you guys would find it of interest at a future meeting.
Pike minnow derby.
Yes.
Actually, it's like strategic spearfishing for large ones. I spent 200 hours trying to get the appropriate permit. The department did not relent, even though
Red
I had
Hawk, would you like to say something?
Yeah, to Pat. So if you want to have this as an agenda item for our next meeting, make the request and we'll put it on there. I think it's a great topic.
Oh, great. We'll do that. And thank you all.
Absolutely.
Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.
Yay.
And
Thanks,
just
Pat,
to finish
so
up
much.
on Red Hawk and Patty's conversation, we'll look into all of the funding opportunities through the county. We'll double check that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. We're going to look into those requests. We do know that the county is doing their best in a really rough situation. If we're struggling this hard, they have to be feeling a similar heat as we are.
And I tell you a joke on that. When you look for collusion, it's usually just confusion.
Sure. Yeah, it's true.
I think that was appropriate. Good night. I gotta go.
All right, well, thank you for coming, Pat. So we're done with all of our agenda items. As far as commissioner reports go, Red Hawk, do you have anything to report?
Just real quick, I think I think Angela's her name. She mentioned that they're still working on Caitlin's contract. It's moving forward, but it's just slow. There's no time frame. And then also just to kind of reiterate the budget stuff, I'm working on that. I put a request in last week. Information, nothing came through. Hopefully at our next meeting, I will have a good report. I would also at our next meeting like to bring in the new county fishing wildlife lieutenant. I think we had Steve White retired last month, and so it would be nice to meet the new man in charge or person in charge of our county. That's it. Nothing else. Oh wait, I did do some other stuff. I think, and you guys, I don't know if you've looked at it, I had the county add some stuff to our webpage to make it easier for people to interact with us. And if you haven't looked at it, look at it and then get back to me to see if there's suggestions or ideas to make it more fluid for the public. That's it.
Great, thank you so much.
Tracy?
Red Hawk, is that an agenda item? Do we have an agenda item?
I will shoot one out to you via email.
Okay. Okay.
Because I'm not sure exactly how I want to word it right now.
Okay.
But yes, I will have some.
Okie dokie.
Thank you.
Tracy, do you have any updates for your region?
Not really.
Fair square. Patty?
Well, I can tell you that fish are running. I mean, you probably know that, but we've had some closed bars on some of the watersheds, and that's kind of been a bummer. But there are fish spawning in even in the Navarro. and Big River and Albion and Noyo I've heard of. I was out on the Navarro this morning. I saw reds, which are, are the evidence that fish have been spawning. It's kind of like their little nest sites, which mean that, there are eggs about 1 foot or 1.5 foot in the gravel. So hopefully these storms that are coming up next week aren't going to blow out the little activity we've had. But at the egg taking station, they're seeing steelhead and some of the first coho, but numbers are low, even at Van Arsdale. So, it's not a great fish year, but at least they are seeming like they're there. They're out in the ocean, but they need more water. Add water and stir is what I say.
Well, good stuff. My partner wanted to chime in 45 minutes too late on his public comment to say that, Patty, there are also salmon in our little creek behind our house. We were pretty excited
Which
on
is
a
it?
hike. It's Captain Guthrie Gulch, I think, or no, it's Little Valley Creek. Sorry, wrong one.
Okay, so are you part of the 10 mile?
Pudding Creek
Pudding
watershed.
Creek, oh, lovely. Pudding Creek's a great stream.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
once
it's
they take
beautiful.
that
We've been
dam
walking
out,
it.
I'm excited to see what's going to happen. It's either going to be good or it's not going to be good. It could go
It'll be
either way
different.
because, you think about rearing habitat, in those areas like the closed off estuaries, they do provide refugia, and all of a sudden you change one thing and the whole dynamic kind of shifts. And sometimes there's a disturbance regime that's unintended. So you got to be careful.
Definitely. Well, good stuff. As far as my section of coastline goes, after much delay and all of the drama, Dungeness crab season opened. There was original delays for whales present on crabbing grounds, so that delayed the fleet. And then the department opened on the 23rd of December, I believe, for crabbing to go. But the price was so low with the buyer that the fleet was on strike up until about a week or so ago. They finally set gear in a calm ocean window, and it sounds like folks are pulling stuff in now. Haven't heard on whether the catch is going to be good or bad, but right now it seems to be so-so, as it always is.
Yeah,
with
and you've had
much
some rough
confusion
water.
some rough water, some drama. Thankfully, there's no domoic acid, at least on our coastline right now. So that's one thing out. And I was nervous that so far that we were going to then run into the gray whale is out right now, able to catch. And if we do get closed down for whales, I'll at least have a little bit of a season.
Yeah, you
And
should have a
other
month.
than that, a month. Take what you can get these days, I guess, with commercial crab.
Yeah.
I guess for the next on our agenda list, any future agenda items, Red Hawk, you're going to check back in with Tracy on how you want yours worded. I can't think of anything for myself at the moment.
I know that there's some pending issues that are happening in terms of groundwater and groundwater sustainability. There's been some new rankings and anything else. It seems like our groundwater basins are going from okay to not okay. And so maybe next time, if I can find a report from the regional board about groundwater rankings, and I think it's all, they're going to try to do it more on a voluntary basis rather than trying to, stick rather than a carrot approach. But, I know that there's some watersheds that are getting depleted, or groundwater basins that are getting depleted, and there's some watersheds that are showing some pretty serious nitrogen and other nutrient pollutants, like the Navarro, that, down the pike, I'm here to tell you, but they're going to try voluntary compliance to begin with.
Yeah, I think we spoke about that at our last meeting as well, about trying to get an update on the groundwater sustainability program that Mendocino is going to have going. as it does really
Yeah.
Fish and Wildlife. So let's look forward to more information on that. And then just very quickly, I forgot in my commission report, I spoke last time about signage at Big River and about the multiple uses of Big River, and folks who have been swimming there, especially since pools have been shut down. And it seems like the persistent swimming group, the Big River Swim Team, as there was inspired California State Parks to replace some of the signage down there about what is allowed, what isn't allowed. It was a project that the MPA Collaborative Network was going to look at taking on, and I was kind of seeking their lovely new swim team of Big River.
Had more information, maybe they could get to us and we could dig into it. But I maybe I'm not understanding you correctly, but that would be an avenue to go.
I
You know, and
will
it's-
absolutely bring
The other
this up
thing
with
is
the
that
board of supervisors. I mean, I
there's
gotta bring
nothing
that.
stopping. I'm sorry, I was talking over you. I didn't mean to.
No.
I think that if the Fish and Game Commission wanted to weigh in on cannabis policy, that one way to do it would be to say to the commissioners, they have an ad hoc group, which is basically Williams and Hatchcheck, and to say to them, would you like the Fish and Game Commission to weigh in on some of your draft concerns? And then we could do it as a group. But I think
Okay.
for us going to them saying, oh, we're, you know, we're, you know, some kind of authoritative voice on cannabis, I'm absolutely not. I basically, you know,
No. Yeah.
ding, ding. I do have concerns too. I mean, I have concerns for the water, you know, too much, everybody's putting too much fertilizer on everything. So, you know, it's impacting everybody, you know? So,
Hey, guys, my battery on my laptop's about to go dead.
okay, let's
So-
call it.
Okay.
Before it dies, we have to set the date for our next meeting.
Okay,
And it's fading quickly here. If we stick with the original schedules, March 9 would be our next date. It would be the second Tuesday. I believe that's our rotation every other month.
it works for me.
Works for me.
Me too.
Are we
All
gonna
right,
do
let's do
3 or
March
3:30?
9th,
Because I
3:30?
thought we were doing 3 o'clock, but we're doing 3:30?
We were, and then
So
Angie?
If it's gonna be on the Tuesday, oh wait. It's the second Tuesday? I don't think we conflict anymore. Unless it
Yeah.
conflicts
Good,
with planning
sweet.
commission.
it would be the 9th of March.
I don't have in front of me the planning commission dates, but they meet on Tuesdays. Or no, I mean it's the board, I'm sorry. It's the end of a long day. So, yes, we could meet, but you might be during the board meeting if that's okay with you guys.
I'm
Then
comfortable with
okay,
that.
it's a board meeting.
Tentative date,
Oh, yeah, we could just watch it.
yeah.
No, that's fine. I don't care.
All right, I'm fading quickly, so whatever you guys decide.
Okay.
March
Ciao.
you,
9th
Red
at what
Hawk.
time?
3
What
o'clock.
time?
3 o'clock.
Okay. March 9th, 3 o'clock. All right, and we're out. All right, I
Okay,
got it.
thank you,
I'll adjourn
everybody.
us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie.
Woo.
You
Thanks,
were
Ed.
Guys,
a gold
Thanks, Angie.
rock star today on all of our tech issues.
thank
Yeah.
you. Have a good night.
You too. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.